who I'm talking about. A couple of selections from him. He is best known for writing something some years ago, an essay called All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. He followed it up with several books of essays, and I just like the way he thinks about things. He was, among many other jobs in his lifetime, a minister, a Unitarian minister. I'd like to share with you a couple of things that he wrote. A Unitarian minister, he says, is often asked to perform interfaith marriages, mixed marriage being the common term, but widely differing religious backgrounds are not usually all that's involved. Any wedding wherein the bride or groom is marrying someone outside the family borders of race or class is mixed, and to be asked to perform such a marriage is to join two people trying to cross a minefield without getting blown apart. The paradigm, for me, is the wedding of a very lovely young woman from Brooklyn. Huge family, Polish immigrant stock, and Jewish. Her tall, dark, handsome fiancé hailed from Detroit. Likewise, a huge family, likewise immigrant stock, but Irish and Roman Catholic. Now, the bride's family included a rabbi and a cantor. The other team had some priests and a nun on their roster. It is bad enough the young man and woman had come all the way out west to Seattle to attend graduate school. Bad enough they might not marry someone from the old neighborhood, but to fall in love with, and even worse, marry someone not like us, was a shameful disaster, a familial earthquake of the first magnitude, unthinkable. But Ms. Brooklyn and Mr. Detroit were 21 years old and overwhelmed with love. And love, they were quite certain, could find a way through any obstacle. The minister had his doubts, having a few shrapnel wounds on his soul from having not made it through minefields with such couples before. Now, from here on out in this story, almost to the very end, the pieces of the plot fall like dominoes. So predictably did it go that I could have made money on side bets as to what was going to happen next. I could have told them, but they wouldn't have listened. Sometimes people have to find out things for themselves, don't they? Here's how they saw their options. Plan A, get married by a judge and never tell the folks back east. But, and here comes love again, they really loved their parents. And if their parents found out, which they were bound to, they would be deeply wounded, especially when they found out there hadn't been a religious ceremony of some kind. And so plan B, get married by a Unitarian minister and tell the parents a day later. A kind of semi-elopement. The parents had no idea what Unitarians believed, or at least it was a religious deal. It was a church. Good idea. Enter the Reverend Dr. Fulghum, which led to Plan C. As long as the wedding was going to be in the church with a minister, they might as well invite, just a few friends, instead of just having two witnesses. And as long as they were inviting those few friends, they might as well invite a few more friends. Sounding familiar? Since they didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and since they were now at the soft edge of that list, where the category friend and the category acquaintance merge, they might as well go ahead and invite everybody they knew. So now we have a big wedding, a juggernaut, in fact, because if you have all those people, you have to have a reception. You can't just say this is really a small wedding, everybody just go out and have coffee. And of course, if you're going to have all those people and a reception, then you can't have just a dinky little wedding and be embarrassed in front of all those people. No, sir. The long white dress, the rented tuxedos, the flowers, attendants, photographers, rings, the whole kit and caboodle. All because they thought having just a few more people would be a nice idea. And guess what comes next? Right. Plan D. They can't do the whole hoo-ha and not invite the families. Minefield, here we come. Now, I'll note in passing that weddings always tend to get a little out of hand. I've never seen one get smaller or stay in budget. One thing always leads to another. It's kind of like marriage itself or life. And why not? When it comes to joy and celebration, let it be expensive always. Anyhow, they stepped on a mine, the big one. They called their mothers and invited them to the wedding. The couple called from my house. And the phone hasn't worked quite right ever since. Probably fried the wires all the way back to Brooklyn and Detroit. You're marrying a what? The mothers were united in their response. A what? followed by silence and a lot of sobbing. Then the daddies got on the line, and the sum of the remarks was, "Come home now, this minute now." For a month, the mail and phone calls flowed like a waterfall. Uncles and aunts and cousins got in the fray. The rabbi wrote a 30-page letter. The priests and the nuns prayed. The families were not coming ever to such a wedding. The families threatened blackmail, hellfire, and heartbreak. Bribes were offered. No matter. Nothing could dissuade the couple. Not even being disinherited, which was the ultimate threat thrown at them by both families. Now that the bride and groom were unmoved, they spent a lot of time in the Reverend Mr. Fulghum's office. The bride bawled, the groom swore, but the marriage was meant to be come hell or high water, both of which seemed well on their way. But the couple had an invisible shield. Love. And a secret weapon, a sense of humor. Light hearts. They laughed as often as they cried. 2, they came from tough, resilient folks who had made it the hard way and had always told their kids not to back off when they believed in something. The kids were doing exactly what their parents had taught them to do. They believed in each other, and that was that. Now the tiebreaker in this standoff was a grandma, the grandmother of the groom. By God, if her only grandson was getting married, no matter to a you-know-what, then she was going to be there. For the sake of the unborn grandchildren who would need her. Besides, she hadn't approved of her daughter-in-law either, but that had worked out just fine, thank you. Granny was serious. Granny went and bought a ticket. She was coming to the wedding, period. Well, then the dominoes fell. If grandmother was coming, then she was going to need support. She couldn't go alone, of course, and pretty soon, all the Irish Catholics from Detroit were coming. They would show those Jewish yahoos from Brooklyn what real family loyalty was all about. And they'd bring Uncle Dickie, the priest, to keep things as godly as possible. Well, you know what happened next. 35 Brooklyn Jews, including Grandfather Rabbi, had plane tickets. The wedding was starting to shape up like a grudge match between Notre Dame and Jerusalem Tech. In physics, they call this achieving a critical mass. And sure enough, they all came.